right, Rob, let's get into this next topic. Something that you and I were hotly anticipating.
Hotly is right.
Hotly anticipating. The big ol' episode known as Herogasm of The Boys happened last night. We are going to get into a non-spoiler discussion here, y'all. We are going to just try to talk in the loosest terms possible about what happened last night. But basically, without spoiling too much, right, we go to a specific event. We have some of our team-ups all come together at this event, and things get a little filthy. They brought on the filthy, but not as much as the actual comic did.
No, the comic was so over the top.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think, first of all, the way that they've set up the show, they could never have done a lot of the scenarios in the comic.
I agree.
They couldn't have done what happens to Black Noir, what he does to Huey, and
Scarlet's on a different path.
Yeah, and Homelander and
Soldier Boy.
Let's remind everyone this is non-spoiler, right?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Non-spoiler. Yeah. So but I have to say this. I mean, I think this season of The Boys has been incredibly strong, and this episode, while it indeed took us to the TV series version of the Herogasm event that's been going on for 80 years or something?
70. It's been 70 years.
And we do find out it's not a spoiler that Soldier Boy himself started it.
With Stormfront.
Started this, which I thought was fun. Mm-hmm. But the show, the ongoing storylines amongst all the characters, this has truly become an ensemble show. And I thought that this episode forwarded those storylines to the point where the tension of this season is being drawn up. There's only 2 more episodes left. And there's a great climax in this episode that doesn't actually have to do it's characters coming together.
Well said.
The way we have wanted to see them come together and the way we perhaps didn't think they might.
Maybe never wanted to.
Yeah, because while other characters are coming together, these principles, there's a lot of the plot that is being clearly tightened, and I don't want to give anything away, but
I know
it was truly great.
Yeah,
it was truly great, and the plotting. I don't mean plotting, PLODDING. I mean plotting, PLOTTING. The plotting of this season continues to be, I think, terrific, top notch. The writing, Eric Kripke and his writing staff on this show they're knocking it out of the park this year, I think.
I absolutely agree. I think the character development that we get here is so, so wonderful. I think the thing that I was a little about, I definitely didn't want a lot of the things we have seen in the panels of Herogasm to happen because they don't make sense for this story, as you were saying.
Yeah.
However, when you start an episode off with warnings about how this is not suitable for any audience, how these are some of the images you're going to see, and we sure did see them. And obviously, it still is Amazon, right? I'm not on Pornhub. There's a limit to what they can show me.
Yeah, but they went pretty damn far.
They did. But when you kick off a season, walking me into somebody's pee hole, you really got to keep up in that ante. And so, am I being too hard on this?
You can never be too hard.
Well, I mean, it better be hard on something than be flaccid on
That's
it, right?
very true. Yeah.
I think. Look, there's a lot to take in. Like, I think this is going to be one of the most frozen episodes of TV ever.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because I was surprised at how much peen you see. I mean,
There's
Elizabeth loves to see. She loves to see peen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of peen. There's full on, and I was surprised by this because I've never seen an episodic show. I don't think not like this where it's just straight up male member.
It was honestly a point of contention with Game of Thrones. Where I was like, why is there never any dong on this show?
Right. Well,
but
there was dong,
and then the boys came.
Yeah, and the word sploosh comes to mind.
Yeah.
Sploosh.
Yep.
Which I didn't expect.
I was shocked at how powers were used.
Oh yes.
As were the people experiencing them.
There was a lot of, this did bring the filthy in sort of creative ways too. Like it if you watched close, there was some really, really, really filthy stuff and a really interesting way to integrate powers into your sex life.
Absolutely.
That they showed, and I was, but it happened so quickly because the camera, there was always plot going on. So you're moving through this, no one ever stopped to watch because there was lots of plot happening.
It was like the Daredevil hallway fight of an orgy. It was just, you were all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, but I have to say, as far as this goes, this was a spectacle the likes I've never seen in any kind of genre television.
They definitely pushed the envelope. I just was expecting. I turned to Logan at one point because I waited to watch it at midnight. I think it dropped earlier last night though. But I'm just really trying to brace myself for what this is going to be, and I just don't want to be horrified this evening.
Well,
and there were moments of it, but not.
The thing was, there was a lot of very serious, deep character stuff going on.
Gosh. MM has such a good scene in this episode, y'all, that is so well acted and so understated and beautifully done amidst all these other scenes. And it's such a good moment that is just so simple and honest. And then you cut to all this stuff.
Right.
The balance that they strike on this show is bananas to me. I would love to be in this writer's room to see how they plot down these moments, because it just does feel like you're on this total emotional roller coaster where it's, hey, let's show some ridiculous, wacky, in-your-face antics that you should never see, and then also juxtapose that with a really human, heartfelt, heartbreaking moment.
We want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's video, Storyblocks. Guys, I have been an enthusiastic fan and user of Storyblocks for years. I go to them whenever I'm in need of content creation assets like royalty-free music, video clips, or templates for my creative projects, ranging anywhere from little editorial videos to my very own full-feature documentary. Storyblocks helps you bring your stories, videos, and projects to life without sacrifices due to time, budget, or access to resources. They have over 1 million different story assets ranging from stock videos, audio and music, an in-browser video editor, and they feature pre-designed templates, animations, and outros. Storyblocks uses an affordable subscription model, and their unlimited access plans offers, well, unlimited video and audio downloads rather than a costly pay-per-clip model. With Storyblocks, you'll be able to create more content and, more importantly, better content, all while using a subscription plan that fits your budget, utilizing unlimited downloads of demand-driven and diverse content. So if you're interested in upping your content creation game, head over to www.storyblocks.com/Campea and get started today. That's www.storyblocks.com/Campea.
Can you imagine the casting notice for this episode? Because there was a lot of extras.
Oh, yes.
There was a lot of extras that were called them dripping.
How would you getting nudity bumps out the wazoo?
There was out and in the wazoo.
Yeah.
So there was all kinds of wazoo happening in this episode, and I just kept thinking about. I'm always thinking about how do they make this. I'm like, what did that? I really want to see, like, what did the announcement, like, what did the casting people do?
Well, what's interesting too, a lot of times, and we've seen this more in a post-COVID world, a lot of times now scenes of this nature do often try to cast real couples. So a lot of times you'll get a casting call of, hey, can you and your partner come in for this role? Which is always a fun discussion with your agents of, what are your boundaries as a couple? What are you willing to do on screen?
You know, I do this podcast for this show, for this channel, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Yeah. I would love to talk to the intimacy coordinator for this particular episode of The Boys. I don't know if you had one, you must have, but boy.
Oh, absolutely.
That would make an hour-long podcast of interest to our viewers, I think.
But should you do that one, Rob? Should you really do that one?
I think I should. I have many questions.
You know what? Honestly, that would be really fun to have Erin in the room on, because she's had to do these kinds of scenes. Nothing to the extent of.
You know what? I haven't talked to Martika or Marilyn Vance, whose podcast it is, but Erin, I would pay money to see Erin Cummings interview the intimacy coordinator on this episode of The Boys.
I would love it. That'd be great.
A
content.
special edition of the Designing Hollywood podcast starring Erin. You know what? You owe me, because I got you a coffee one morning. I am willing to forego you working for scale for me for the day if you do this interview, because my God.
I think that'd be so interesting, because she's been on a podcast called That One Audition, where she's talked about having to audition for sexual situations, right? And how that works, and what you as an actor have to perform and prepare and all of that, and runs you through how that all works. So I think it'd be really, really cool to have somebody with that kind of insight talking with somebody who actually handles how that all is choreographed.
I mean, I directed 5 episodes of a Skinamax HBO show called Femme
God.
Fatales.
Of course you did.
And we had sex scenes. We had like 3 sex scenes an episode, and they had to last for a certain amount of time. And I that's why when I watched the antics that were happening, I marveled at this. I was like, wow.
Well, and all those extras are very engaged.
Very engaged.
It is. You are very immersed in that world and what is occurring.
But I do think, I mean, they could have really leaned into it, but the boys, you know what, for all of its excesses, I really admired how they kept the plot moving through all of these shenanigans. They could very easily have spun off into, let's look at the naked people doing all these things happening, but they never did that. They never lost the plot.
It's weird to say, especially if you haven't read the comics, to say that this was handled with a lot of restraint. Because really, they could have gone so much further and filthier, but they really did keep the focus on what these characters' objectives were, how everyone is feeling about one another in this moment, and setting us up for a really, really great climax to the season, ultimately.
It certainly was a climax. And I will say this. I mean, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I kind of wanted to see, well, I'm not going to say who, but there's there's one character I particularly love on this show, and she is more pure as the driven snow than other characters are. And I was kind of wondering if she was going to get involved in this, and she was involved, but she kept her honor.
Oh, absolutely.
And I have to say, this kind of was her episode.
Yes, well, and the way where we end this episode too, for a lot of these characters, it's really, really exciting to see where everything's going to go, because as we've seen, no one is safe on this show.
No.
Anybody can get got. And the way that they are dishing out justice in this episode, the way they are trying to, follow their own path without compromising themselves, or some people are compromising themselves, is really, really fascinating.
Oh, there was some very, there was a particularly satisfying, there's some satisfying moments that you've been waiting to see. And they were pretty satisfying.
That one scene was so gross and so satisfying.
Yeah.
Of like, absolutely.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. I think ultimately.
So vague, sorry.
Yeah, I think ultimately,
Right.
I should have vaped or smoked a cigarette after this. Either way, because there was a lot of goodness in this episode.
There's absolutely a lot. And when is John doing his after show today?
I
that a
believe he's right.
He said, so
don't
we'll
know.
see.
Well,
I
John
think so.
will get into all the nitty gritty filthy that happens in
Yeah,
this
I
episode.
mean, I think if anybody has to talk about this episode, it's got to be John Campea himself.
I think so, yeah. Give the people what they want, right? John Campea, talk about hero guys.
You know what? We talk about bringing the filthy on this show a lot, and the filthy was brought.
Yeah.
It sure was. But the question is, guys, what did you think of the episode Herogasm? Did it live up to your expectations, or were you not completely blown away? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below.
Blown away?
Yep.